Hey everybody, Eric Grenier here with Philippe J. Fournier for this new episode of The Numbers. Philippe, it is construction season, I guess, around my house, so I will see if what I can do. I don't know if people are going to hear it or not, but there is a slight hum happening around me, so my apologies up front, both to you and to our listeners and viewers. But apart from that, how are you doing today?
You know what? Doing very well. We are past, Eric, the midway point of this campaign.
Wow.
It's going to be very fast from now on with the debate next week, then the advance polls. And I started thinking about the end of this campaign, and even though the rhythm is too high and it's wearing out on me, I feel a bit sad to see the end right now. So, but it's okay. We'll get over it. So, how are you, Eric? How are you holding up?
I'm doing okay.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. We're starting to. It's kind of nuts that we're already halfway through, but also that we still have halfway to go.
Yeah,
so we'll see how it all going to play out. But we're starting to get some numbers that are pretty consistent.
Yeah.
We're not seeing a lot of change in the day to day. Right now, we'll start with the big picture with where the numbers are. In my averages, I have a 44 for the Liberals, 37 for the Conservatives, 9 for the NDP, 5 for the Bloc. They're at about 24 in Quebec. I'm still at around 200 seats for the Liberals, around 120 for the Conservatives, 20 for the Bloc, 5 for the NDP. Where are you right now?
The vote-wise is similar, 44 for the Liberals, 37 for the Conservatives. I have an 8 for the NDP, a bit lower than you. And seat-wise, how many did you say you have for the Liberals?
As of this morning, I'm still at 200.
I'm at 196, so you and I are converging a little bit, right?
That makes me feel better, because last time we had like a 10-seat gap between us. I'd rather that we be wrong together or right together. I don't want bragging rights. I just want us to succeed and be happy.
It's the friends we made along the way, Nick. So I have 121 for the Conservatives right now, Bloc at 17, NDP at 8. But many of them toss-ups, very close races, and one green. So this is where we're at with the numbers we had this morning. And it's very interesting. You talked about the dailies that we get every morning. On the day that Liaison Strategies has the smallest gap so far in this campaign, only 3 points between the Liberals and Conservatives, was 43-40. On the same morning, you see Main Street Research has the widest gap that they had. So again, people, this is a perfect example that, yes, we see fluctuations all the time. It takes more than one poll to see a trend. We're not saying that Liaison, I mean, in their article on the poll, Liaison said, this is not a trend yet, but we'll watch if it's getting really tighter. But then Main Street had a wider gap. And we had a ton of polls after our episode, Eric, on Monday, from Léger, from the Angus Street Institute, and also from Abacus data, the very much awaited Abacus data poll. So where do you want to go first, Eric?
I think we need to start with that, the Abacus poll, because Angus Reid and Léger, again, didn't show much movement at all from their previous survey, which was done in the first week.
Yeah.
And that's especially the case when we look at those tracking polls, we compare to where they are now to where they were in the first week. Yeah. They also don't show any movement. The online polls, first week and the second week, no movement. I think it's possible that there might have been a few good days for the Liberals in there, because I think we did kind of see that a bit from Nanos and a bit from, I think, Liaison, in that they have receded from those particularly good days. But apart from that, I really don't see much sign of a movement. But whenever we would do one of these podcasts over the last little while, and we'd talk about the Liberals leading, we'd get two comments. One was, first, well, Innovative Research is showing the Conservatives ahead.
That's true.
The last poll we got from Innovative had the Liberals ahead by 6. And then the final holdout was Abacus, where they were in their previous survey showing 39% for both the Liberals and the Conservatives. Now their latest numbers put 42 for the Liberals, 36 for the Conservatives. So now we have every single pollster, and I counted it up, that's 13 different pollsters, now showing the Liberals leading by at least 3 points and as many as 10, if we're talking about some of the more recent ones. So that seems to me like a pretty broad consensus.
And also about Abacus. I mean, I don't want to get into house effects and such, but I have, of course, I compile all the polls on 338, and if you go on a poll page, you can enter the name of a pollster and it filters out all the polls from that pollster. For Abacus data, we had to go back to April 2022, so 3 years, to have a Liberal lead. It was 33 and 231 back then. So it's been a while since the Liberals have had the lead. I think a few Léger and even Ipsos poll had the Liberals leading in 2023, but not in Abacus. So this is significant, and this is also a very rapid swing, right? From a tie to a 6-point lead in the span of 4 days, basically. So what happened? Is it a regression to the mean? Is it a blip? Is it converging towards the others? I'm not sure, but now the worst poll for the Liberals have them at 42 nationally. And the absolute best poll for the Conservatives have them at 40 nationally. And this is why Eric and I, for those watching and listening, this is why we have a 6-7 point lead for the Liberals, because we take all this data and we average them out. And also the regionals. Oh my God, I was looking at the latest Léger number. So Léger sees a very stable race, published on, I think it was Tuesday night. 44 Liberal, 37 Conservative, so right on our average. And in Quebec, 42 Liberal, 23 Conservative, 23 Bloc. So this is holding in Quebec. And then in Ontario, 48 Liberal, 39 Conservative. So a 9-point lead. We've seen somewhere between 7 and 12-point leads. We had Ipsos that had 20, but that seems a tad high. Do you see a path somewhere for the Conservatives where they close the gap, even with a small variation, maybe a small ballot box bonus here and there? Is there a way for the Conservatives to make it maybe a minority with this?
Not with these numbers. And I mean, not with where things are now. I do believe that there's a good possibility that the polls will underestimate the Conservatives again, as they've done in the last couple campaigns. But if they do, a lot of it will be in places where it won't have an impact on the seats. The polls are off. In my poll tracker, the polls are off by about 2.5 points in the last 2 campaigns, actually. But if you look at where that error was, a lot of it was in Alberta, and a lot of it was particularly outside of Calgary and Edmonton. So it's probably not going to make a big difference in terms of the seats. It could make a big difference in terms of the vote. Maybe it ends up being a bit closer. But if that error is replicated, it's just an error that emphasizes the vote inefficiency of the Conservatives. What would need to change is that something needs to change in the campaign. I think that's really the path. There's no path in the numbers where you shave off a couple points here, you shave off a couple points there, and the Conservatives could eke out the most seats. They're just too far behind for that, particularly at the regional level, because I was compiling the numbers, and while there is that 3 to 10 point gap nationally, the worst poll that I could find, recent poll, aside from Main Street, because their regionals are paywalled, was a 6-point lead for the Liberals in Ontario. That was the worst poll for the Liberals. So if they're ahead by 6 points in Ontario, there's no chance that they don't win a minority government at the minimum. The Conservatives need something to happen in the rest of the campaign. They need something to intervene. Because I don't think just naturally it'll happen. I don't think there's enough of a drip. Because you look at that Abacus poll, the positive impressions of Mark Carney have gone up. They're now at 47%. The negative impressions are down to 28%. So this isn't a case where the more people are getting to know him, the more vulnerable the Liberals are getting. So there needs to be something that changes. It can't just be that what's been going on for the last 2.5 weeks continues for the next 2.5 weeks, because if that happens, Liberals win a big majority and maybe 200 seats. Yeah,
and what you said about Ontario, if let's say the Conservatives overperform and the gap is really only 6 points and not 12 or 15, but then you have Quebec. The bloc is too low right now in Quebec, and if the gap is 6 points in Ontario in favor of the Liberals, you had Quebec with a 15, 20-point lead. That's too many seats for the Liberals, for the Conservatives to close that gap. It just doesn't work. You mentioned Abacus, and I wanted to mention in the numbers, I remember seeing in Abacus numbers the age breakdown was really stark and really depressing for the Liberals. Right now, the young cohort, you remember how Poilievre was dominating young cohort? And I was asked this many times by journalists.
Yeah.
That advantage among young voters is gone. Unless they're all wrong, obviously. We'll get to that later. But Abacus has 39 Liberal, 32 Conservatives among the 18 to 29. And if you look at the Léger, the young cohort Léger, it was 39 Liberal, 38 Conservatives, a tie. So that, that narrative that built around, the young people are much more conservatives, well, maybe perhaps compared to previous elections. But the Conservatives have lost their advantage among young voters in the polls.
Yeah, and that same Abacus poll had a 12-point lead for the Liberals among 60 and over.
Yeah, well,
so it's
and
not
that's a small number too. Yeah,
and it's not as if the Liberal vote is young and so it's not going to turn out. The Liberal vote is also old and will turn out, so it might cancel it out anyway. So yeah, there's again, it just goes. We've said it pretty much almost every episode. If you're a conservative, operative, whatever, looking through all the polls to find the little kernel of where you have a chance.
Yeah.
I don't see one. Unless things change. But I'm just saying that based on where the numbers are now and based on all the underlying things, everything indicates that without an external impact and an external influence, that the Liberals would continue to cruise to a victory on April 28th. So they need to do something.
I'll make a case. Tell me if I'm crazy, okay?
All right.
So you have the Liberals at around 200. Let's say you overestimated by, 10 seats, and
Sure.
they're at 190, right?
Yeah.
Then you have to shave 20 seats to get them to a minority. If the bloc is not polling in the low 20s, but closer to 30%, if the bloc recovers after the French debate, then suddenly, instead of winning 45 to 50 seats, the Liberals maybe won 30 or 35 in Quebec. And then you get close. And then maybe in BC, the NDP recovers a little bit. And all these orange seats in Vancouver, they don't go all red as we think most of them will at the moment. So I was trying to build this scenario where the NDP and the Bloc both recover. But then I realized, okay, well, that's not the Conservatives. The Conservative problem is that those two parties are right now far too low, and that's why the Liberals are winning. And then I get, okay, maybe in Vancouver we're missing something. And we mentioned Vancouver, Eric, in the previous episodes. We had a breakdown from the Angus Street Institute. Again, small sample size, but not that small. I mean, they're still interesting. Metro Vancouver from the Angus Street Institute this week. 52 Liberal. 27 Conservatives, 16 NDP. That's a near sweep, isn't it? That's the Liberals, if they're that high, and we have seen similar numbers from MQO, and I think Léger was last week where they had an oversample of BC, then that's almost a sweep in Vancouver. Same poll, Angus Reid, Toronto. 416, so Toronto proper, 24 seats. 64 Liberal.
Yeah.
25 Conservatives. So that's a sweep. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
That's a
no
sweep.
doubt.
Not even
no
close.
doubt.
The NDP is at 9 in Toronto. And then you look at the 905. Very important, we know. Depending on how you cut it, it's between 30 and 32 seats. 55 Liberal, 38 Conservatives. 3 NDP. NDP is battling the margin of error here. So that's a Liberal sweep of Toronto and the GTA and Vancouver. And then we know, I mean, we had Montreal here, 50 Liberal, 24 Bloc, 16 Conservatives. So it's a sweep of the cities, the big cities, basically. So
yeah, I mean, you add those three cities, you add another 25 seats in Atlantic Canada, you're already at 100.
Yeah.
Seats for the Liberals, right? So that's without the GTA. That's without seats in Winnipeg, in parts of the prairies, in rural Quebec, in southwestern Ontario.
Ottawa,
like
right?
it starts to get like it's hard to find that path, as you said. Now, the path though that you laid out, where it drops the Liberals to a minority, that I can see. That I can easily imagine with the kind of numbers we're seeing here. But it's to get to the point where it's an open question who actually wins the most seats. That's where it requires way too much movement, at least right now. And again, I keep emphasizing this. We're talking about where things are now, what the signs are right now. But there will be debates, and they will have a big impact on public opinion, but they might not, and they might just confirm what people are already thinking. But where things are now, yep, it's a liberal majority where things are now. There's no real indication of anything other than that.
Man, I'm looking forward to those debates. And usually, I have to say, I always look forward to debates until they start, and 10 minutes in, I go like, oh God.
Well, yeah.
But I still watch them. But this considering the stakes, considering for all parties, the Bloc batting for, no, I don't want to say it's survival because it will survive this, but there were very much impressions that the Bloc Québécois, and these are the words of Yves-François Blanchet, was basically trying to set the table, roll the red carpet for next year's Quebec provincial election. I mean, if the Bloc loses half its deputation, its caucus, that's hard to say, oh, we're driving the momentum back to the Parti Québécois. For the NDP, how many seats did you say you have them? 5 this week?
5.
Today? I mean, that's hard. I mean, the NDP will recover. They always do. It's just, it takes a while. When they had those bad results in the 90s, it took them 15 years to come back from this, right? It's the same thing. If they go down now, less funding, less money for research, for staff, it will take a while for them to recover. It's also interesting that in the 2 provinces where you have NDP-led governments, in BC and Manitoba, the federal Liberals are doing very well right now.
Yeah.
And so maybe not having a provincial cousin, perhaps it helps you. It brings less baggage to you, right? So, yeah.
Now, do you believe the polls, though, Philippe?
Well,
do you believe them?
If we didn't...
Should I introduce this segment first?
Yeah, introduce it, because we have to be careful what we're saying here, but go ahead. Yes, introduce it, yes.
So at the Pierre Poilievre's rally in Brampton on Wednesday night, there was a group of people wearing sweaters that said, "Do you believe the polls?"
And they had banners
with a question mark. They had banners. They got a photo with Pierre Poilievre, at least one.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah. So now the narrative coming from some corners of the Conservatives seems to be that the polls are not even true at all. You can look at the lawn signs. You can look at the rallies. This is apparently, I saw Bob Fife from the Globe Mail saying that this is what Jenny Byrne was telling National Council of the Conservatives, that don't believe the polls. They're doing great. So what do we make of this?
Okay, I'll say this. There are many ways. We were not there for those conversations, obviously, and sometimes the transcript maybe doesn't reflect the message, the whole message. Telling your candidates and your volunteers and your staff and those who do the phone calls, don't believe the polls, we're still in this, we're competitive. There could be a positive message in there. It's like, don't give up, we're still in this.
Yeah.
But for some reason, there's also a more nefarious interpretation of this. And we have seen this script south of the border, right? Basically, polls that are good for us are true, and polls that show us down are fake. And you know who thinks like that? Toddlers. Toddlers thinks like that. So it's not fun to see. I had a flood of messages. It seems to be coordinated right now. And I hope we do not go down this path. It's okay to not believe the polls, by the way. You're free to do whatever you want, right? But it leads down a path towards basically saying, if we lose the election, it's because it's rigged. We know that's where it's going. So I hope we don't go down this path. But I look at those signs, and it reminds me of 2020, south of the border, right? Am I crazy?
No, you're not crazy. There's definitely a conspiratorial aspect to it. Now, what you said first is 100% true, right? If the message is, don't believe the polls, this campaign isn't over. That's 100% correct.
100%. Yep.
It's not over, so don't believe that like you don't have a chance. Like that's an okay message. But if the message is actually don't believe the polls, they're fake, that's a bit of a problem. And we do know that this is some of the underlying things that is, we see it all. We see it in our YouTube comments. We see it on social media. You just mentioned, you get comments like this all the time. So adding to that fire is, I think, an unfortunate thing. Because it's not, to the conspiratorial nature of it is what's the most bothersome. Because, like I said, so I compiled it because I wrote about it in my newsletter today. There's been 13 polls, okay? 13 pollsters. You got 6 of them that do their polls online. The gap for the Liberals is between 6 and 10 points in these online polls. We have polls who use IVR.
Yep.
This is the interactive voice response automated polling. We've seen gaps of 3 points, 6 points, and 15 for Mikos, which is still the kind of the outlier in terms of the size of the gap. There's 2 pollsters, Nanos and Ipsos, that are combining live callers with internet polling. They show a gap of between 5 and 8 points. There's Main Street, which is using text message polling to get people to do their things online. They had a 7-point gap this morning. And then you have Poilievre, which is combining telephone, online, and IVR, and it had an 8-point lead. So we got 13 pollsters using 5 different methodologies, all with different weighting schemes, sampling from different panels, with different ways of asking questions, be it including the leader, not including the leader. Yep. They're all showing this. So all these polls using all these different methodologies, all these competitors would have to be in some way in league or all seeing things wrongly the same way. We have heard accusations of bias for each pollster.
Oh, yeah.
For every party. When the Conservatives were leading, this pollster was the Conservative shill. This person was the Conservative shill. Now that the Liberals are leading, those pollsters are now the Liberal shills. We've heard all of this kind of stuff before, so don't bring us that. If you don't want to believe the polls because you don't want to believe the campaign's over, more power to you.
Yep.
But if you don't want to believe the polls because you just think that they're fake and they're wrong, bring some data.
I'm going to add a little thing that we, from south of the border again. During all these Trump antics, where he was saying all the polls are wrong, don't believe they're bot media, they're biased, never once did they say, I mean, Donald Trump in his rallies could have said, do not answer polls. Like, boycott them. He could have said that, and he never did. And you know why? Because they do their internal polling. They do their own polling, and they don't. If they start saying don't answer the polls, their internal polling will be garbage. And so I can tell you, from all parties whine on the poll all the times, okay? But if they say don't believe the polls, I can tell you 100% they believe the polls. They do their polling. So this is very unfortunate. I guess it's part of the game, but we had to mention it on this podcast because, of course, if we don't push back on this, what are we doing? So we had to mention it. It's okay. I really do think it's a minority. It's just too bad that it's been pushed by, it seems, the higher-ups in the Conservative Party. But it's just not necessary. No. Just say you'll work harder to win the hearts of Canadians. Say something positive, but you do you. So
one last comment on this with the talk of the United States. Now polls have gotten a bit of a bad rap over the last few U.S. elections because Trump ended up winning 2 of them when the polls said that he wouldn't. I was just looking at the numbers. The aggregate for Kamala Harris in the last campaign ended up being on the money.
Oh, absolutely. Oh,
now the aggregate had her somewhere around 48%. That's what she got. But the aggregate had her winning by a point. In the end, Trump won by 1.5 points. So the total error was 2.5 points. Which isn't a big error, but it was small. Enough. It was enough to change the outcome of the election.
Yeah.
So I ran my numbers today in my model. If you drop the Liberal lead by 2.5 points, do you know what happens?
Still a majority.
The odds of a Liberal victory go from 98% to 90%. It does not have a big impact. So again, if you believe that the polls make mistakes, you're right. Polls make mistakes. Yeah. But they would have to be off by so much.
And all of them.
All of them in the same direction and all of them making that same error. to an extent that we haven't seen in a national election. I don't know when. You'd have to have a 10-point error or something like that. I don't know when that's happened before.
Federally, not in our lifetime.
You'd have to go back to like the days of Gallup. Maybe once upon a time they made that kind of mistake. But anyway, believe what you want, folks. But if you're watching this, we hope that you believe the polls because we do.
Well, and also it's, again, I will tell you more of an eye of a scientist. It's not about belief. You can choose to not believe gravity. Who gives a well, sorry, but who gives, so it's statistics. And if you say that they're all in cahoots, well, okay, better bring some proof because incredible statements require incredible evidence and you don't have it. So let's now move on. So
how about we move on to the writing of the week?
Writing of the week. Okay, you go first, Eric.
Okay, well, mine is going to be, because I got this question today, and I've gotten it a lot, and it's probably the question I've gotten the most when it comes to writings.
Okay.
Burnaby Central. Jagmeet Singh's writing. So he is projected to lose it in my model and in your model, and not by a little. It's not like a toss-up or something like that. So I just wanted to go over some of the numbers. So Singh won, well, I should say the NDP won what is now Burnaby Central, because the riding changed, by 8.5 points in the last election. That's not a huge margin.
No.
In BC, in my aggregate, the NDP has dropped 16 points. The Liberals have gained 16 points. So the swing between the two parties is 32 points. The swing that the Liberals needed to win this riding would be 8.5 points. If Singh is able to buck those trends even by half, he would still lose the riding by pretty big margins. So if he manages to win, he would be doing something that is well beyond what is usually the case. Could happen. He's a leader. Lots of focus on the riding. But the math just doesn't math for the NDP in Burnaby Central. And that's why, for both of us, he's the leader who's most likely not to get reelected.
Yeah, I mean, leaders usually get a bump in their writing, but they have also to have good personal numbers. And Monsieur Singh's personal numbers have not trended up lately. So that's a good one. We'll circle back to that one at some point. I decided to go into the GTA for my writing of the day, Eric. There are two Aurora. That's a tough word to pronounce. Aurora seats. And one is Aurora Oak Ridges Richmond Hill. This is a very close seat. So transpose data 2019, Conservative take it by 0.5 point. Transpose data 2021, Liberals take it by 2 points. Right now I have a 5-point advantage for the Liberals. But if you look at this sort of bellwether riding, the Conservatives have to win there if they have any shot of winning more seats in Ontario. This is one that I'm watching, the two Auroras. So this is Northern GTA. We'll see how it goes, but with those great numbers we saw in the GTAs for the Liberals, there's not enough non-Conservative seats in the rest of the province to make up those losses. The Conservatives have to win there.
Yeah, Northern GTA is one of the better places for the Conservatives. So if they're not even making gains there, you can forget about Mississauga and Brampton, right? So, that's usually how it goes. All right, so that'll be it for this episode of The Numbers. And if you want to join us, we're going to record our bonus episode on Saturday, which we do every Saturday for members of our Patreon. So you can go to thenumberspod.ca to join the Patreon, get the episode on Saturday. And Philippe will chat on Saturday. And Absolutely. I just want to say that I believe in you.
And I believe in you too. Thank you, everybody. Merci beaucoup, tout le monde. You have a great week and see you on Saturday. See you on Saturday.